Bernie, what's up?
What's up, Michelle? Look at Michelle. She's outside in her rustic barn, enjoying the afternoon while she does ACL live out in the West Coast.
Yeah, as long as I don't move too much. That's when things get wonky,
So you ready? It's national time, baby. It's time to go.
I've been ready. I have been ready for a minute, let me tell you.
It's like, I look, I love the Opens, and I know everyone digs the Opens. I'm ready. It's national season. It's when the pros, it's when the cream rises to the top. And this is when you find out who's truly elite of the elite. So I love this time of year.
And also we've seen in seasons past that people go really deep that we're not expecting. That's fun to see. Like, with Opens, we're trying to see, like, are any amateurs going to get through to the end? But with the pro-only events, you're just wondering which of these names that we weren't thinking were going to make it in deep into a bracket, win a bracket, or win the whole thing even. We saw that first national last season. None of those were people we predicted to be there in doubles.
Yeah. I wonder, do we have a Mark Richards this year? I don't see it. That was a season of all seasons. I don't think there's, you can talk your Fisher Hamiltons, your Ryan Wiedenfelds, guys like that, your Gavin Cano possibly. Right?
But they're already on our radars. Mark Richards at first national was not on our radar.
It's true. That's what I mean. Is that person out there? I don't know. That's what I love about this time of year. And I kind of like it a little more this year. Normally we've had one national. We're going into our second national, right? We're kind of seeing, if there was a surprise or two in there, can they maintain that level? So it's interesting. It's all going to be much closer together. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I do too. Now, normally before the nationals, we would have a bracket breakdown type of show. But since this is our very first national, we are using seeding to get those brackets. So we don't have the brackets yet like we normally would. So we're going to treat this more like we do an Open, where we go through our kind of singles and doubles that we want to watch. And then for our next national, then we will actually have brackets to go through with all of you.
Yep. It's fun, right? Little rounders, figure out who's playing well on that day. I like it better than, because you can't really use the rankings right now.
Right.
Because they're so skewed towards the Open. A lot of the pros that haven't gone to all the Opens are way down. It would be cool for someone that's ranked, a top 10 player high up on the list as a 1 seed, but then in their first match they end up with someone like Jamie Graham, right, who hasn't really been taken. Sweet.
Wait a second.
Yeah. So, but it should settle in after this first national. But I'm psyched. I really am.
Me too. So this is going to be in Corpus Christi, Texas next weekend. We're going to have 3 broadcasts that are going to take place. We got our teams event that's going to be there. Texas Bully Baggers playing on TV in Texas. So many fun things to look out for. Bernie and I have put together our singles and doubles to watch. We're going to go through each one of those. So we'll take a quick break and come back with Bernie's singles and see what you think. welcome back. Bernie, are you ready to get into your singles?
All right, it's the first national of the year that we're doing a top five and top five singles, top five doubles. Once again, folks, top five players to watch. This is not my order of finish. Just I know people get a little crazy about that. Got to clarify. These are my five to watch. So here we go.
Yeah, because it would be so boring if we just picked who we thought was going to win. Like we just put same names all the time. It just
It's kind of like our power rankings, right? The 10 that we all put out, right? It's like they might be in different spots in that 10, but there's pretty, 8 or 9 of those are pretty similar, right?
Yeah.
So it's exactly how that would be if we just picked top fives.
Exactly. All right, let's get into it.
First one, Matt Guy. And I segued there. I don't know if you saw what I did, talking about people in our top 10s and our power rankings, some in, some out. I did not have Matt Guy in my initial top 10 power ranking in singles. I had Jason McCannon literally texting me, I guess within 5 minutes of it being released online. So, I mean, it takes a while for people to actually see something come up online, right? So within 5 minutes of it actually being downloaded online, I was getting text messages from Jason McCannon asking me, what in the hell I was thinking about. And I'll be honest, I mean, I don't know if I was subconsciously kind of trying to challenge Matt a little bit because the fields are different now. They're just simply different now. And having him at probably 11th, which is what he would have been on my list, that's not an insult. I mean, 3-4 years ago, top 10 was really truly elite. I mean, I think now top 20. I mean, if you look at, you can go 20 deep in singles, and you're talking elite talent. So it wasn't necessarily meant as a diss to Matt Guy. It was more about the depth of talent in the ACL Pro division as a whole, and maybe a little bit of kind of, let's go, Matt.
What's interesting is
I want to see you. I want to see you with that level again because the game has changed, right? The styles of play have changed, and Matt's kind of an old school type player. And I would like to see a Matt Guy, a Damon Dennis, someone along those lines that still plays that old style of game. I want to see if they can still do it. So that's why I have Matt number 1 on my list.
Yeah, I was starting to say it's interesting because this time last season we thought Matt Guy wouldn't lose. We were saying he's going to win every national. He's unstoppable.
Right.
I believe it was in Vegas that he was so impressive, right? Was that in Vegas? Yep. So we saw him just be completely unstoppable.
And you felt like he had something to prove. Yeah. Well, now, in a way, I feel because the year before that, you had Jamie Graham kind of usurped his way and Trey Birchfield as kind of the best players in the world at that point, right? And we felt like Matt Guy was coming back with something to prove, and he was doing so well in the Opens before the first national. Now I think he actually does have something to prove because I'm not the only one, believe it or not. I mean, I may have not put him in my top 10 in my initial power rankings, but I'm not the only one that's had the discussion, has the game taken that half step by Matt Guy? I don't think it. I mean, I still look, once again, he's still elite of the elite, still the first face on the Mount Rushmore of male cornhole players, right? No question. But has the game taken a step away from what makes him so great? I don't know. So that's why I had him number 1 on my list. Number 2, Alex Hicks.
The opposite.
Well, it's funny, and I get blasted for saying this. Alex has been kind of an open warrior. Right, he does so many amazing things in the Opens. He hasn't, obviously, can't talk bad about him in shootouts. He hasn't had that opportunity because of his age. I don't see the same results. And look, he's still playing very, very well in nationals. I just don't see those same finishes from Alex. Not to say it won't happen, but I think it's time now. And I know that sounds crazy because of his age, but when you start thinking of his talent, and it's immense, right? I don't care what age he is. His talent is immense. So it's time for him to kind of start making a statement in the nationals.
I agree. I do find that, we are seeing him kind of come up short in the nationals in comparison to the Opens, but I also do feel like this is his year. I don't know. You hear Anthony talk about it a lot. He's always beating that Alex Hicks drum. And he is saying that, this season, I think he's going to get a national finish. And I will say, in Spencer McKenzie's, Alex Hicks looked really good there. I'm not really sure. Do we consider that an Open, or I don't know what kind of event we call that?
Right.
but so many people there playing, so much elite talent, making it all the way to the broadcast in a really big tournament of that size. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's doable.
I do, but once again, the nationals in singles especially, it's all pros. And there's no knock on some of the talent in opens, but you can get a pretty clean draw in an open sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And for Alex, I think he's had, it's been a little rougher on him in the nationals because, you play your first pro, then you play your second pro, then you're never getting a rest. And each level up is a harder person to play on the pro division, and it's just hard. But I mean, the talent's there. We've seen him do it on other levels. I'm just waiting for that breakthrough. And look, talking about the professor, I mean, Anthony Ione, it's Alex Hicks and Joe Neistat. Right?
I know.
Right? Those are his boys.
Well, no, we all have you're Eddie Grindersleeve, and
I mean, I'm Eddie Grindersleeve, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think Eddie, and I love Eddie Grindersleeve, but I'm not going to tell you Eddie Grindersleeve's going to win a national.
Okay. I was going to say, we all have like our guys or girls that we always talk about. Those are definitely his.
For sure. But I think it's time, and I think the talent's there. I think, he's had a lot of play now under his belt, so you can't say, he doesn't have enough experience because he's so young.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from a play experience level, he's there. He's ready. So I think it's time, and I'm hoping in this first national we see Alex Hicks take that step forward.
Absolutely.
Number 3, my number 1 in my initial power rankings for the pro division. I think Devin Harbaugh is playing at a level beyond what Devin Harbaugh has played in the past, and that's saying something.
I picked him for to win the first national in my hot take.
I have no problem with that. I think he's had some issues at nationals as well. But I think it's time, and I think he's playing. The only thing I would worry about with Devin Harbaugh is, does he put too much pressure on himself, because he is playing so well. You know what I mean? When you're doing so well in these other events, and you can feel your game is kind of ratcheting up to another level, do you start to put internal pressure on yourself? Like, man, I've got to make this happen now.
That's that. I mean, you got to take a page out of Mark Richards' book, because whatever he did last season to avoid that.
Yes.
I mean, he to me is the best I've seen deal with that, where you're just where everybody's talking about you, everybody's saying you're the best right now, and having that not impact your game and negatively at all is pretty miraculous.
I think it takes a special person. I think it takes, if you're a narcissist, that all works out really well for you, right?
Sure.
But if you're not, that can add pressure. I just hope he kind of relaxes and plays how he knows how to play, because he's proven right now. I mean, what are we talking? A handful of players that can compete with him when he's on right now? Yeah. A handful, not many. And so I would not be surprised if he wins a bracket, put it that way.
Oh, yeah. I think winning a bracket is, unless he gets in a bracket that has Alex Rawls, Mark Richards, Trey Birchfield, Mark, sure. I mean, have all of them in one bracket. That's when I would be like, wow, this is going to be tough. Right. But assuming he's not in a bracket with like the top 5 people, I think it's a given that he wins his bracket.
Oh, a given call. There you go, Devin. I actually didn't jinx you. It was Michelle on this one. But would you be surprised at all to see him on a broadcast? I wouldn't.
No, not at all.
Number 4 for me is Fisher Hamilton. There's been a lot of talk. Ryan Wiedenfeld, I think, got a lot of the talk for some of the guys coming up. I see online a lot of people banging the Fisher Hamilton drum. Don't disagree necessarily. Do not disagree with it. But here's a national. Now show us. Are you one of the elites that can go through a pro bracket and just do what you've been doing on an open level? Can you do that? Show it to me. I would love to see it. I would love.
Wait. You got to do it, Trey. Prove it.
Trey. Prove it. Yeah. But I mean, I've heard a lot of talk about Fisher Hamilton. I've seen him play, but I haven't seen him play as much as everyone else on this list. Yeah. So I want to see that type of excellence from Fisher Hamilton in this first national.
I agree. I think that once again, we go back to how do you deal with pressure? He's a rookie that everybody's talking about. And it's been even before this season started, we're already talking about Fisher Hamilton's definitely going to make it into the pro field. He's going to be elite. He's a candidate for Rookie of the Year before he even started the season. Right. So it's a matter of how do you handle that? Is that something that allows you to rise? Is that something that kind of allows you to, go down under the pressure? I mean, what is the response mentally to that? Because the mechanics, the experience, the level of play, it's all there.
Right. The beauty of being his age is that I don't think you feel pressure, and that it doesn't feel the same, right? When you're still a teenager or when you're very young, you feel pressure, but it's different. You internalize it differently. You don't grind over it mentally the way you do if you were, say, someone in your 30s. Like I don't know who to think of as a player, but let's say we had someone that just kind of burst on the scene in their 30s or 40s. I think that type of pressure would grind on you emotionally a little bit differently.
Yeah, but you could also say that someone as a teenager doesn't necessarily have the emotional, skills to navigate some of the highs and lows of the game as well.
Agreed. I agree with that. I wonder if they're going to dwell on it the way that I would say. I mean, I know it would be in my head 24 hours a day leading up into this net. The last 2 weeks, I probably wouldn't sleep if I was Fisher Hamilton going into this national. You know what I mean? I'd be so excited to play, but then if I had my first round was awful, right? I was just too jacked up, threw 2 off the board, and all of a sudden I gave up like an 8, right? I mean, like that would destroy me emotionally. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's going to do anything like that, but you have to be ready for, can you be too jacked up, right? Because if you're just throwing it a little bit too hard at this level, you make a couple of mistakes, but it is the 21, so you've got time. That is the beauty. You've got time. But I want to see if Fisher can take that step. And my last one, number 5, Yeti Irwan. The reason I put Yeti on my list is Yeti, I believe, was the 3rd-ranked female last year, behind Cheyenne and Sarah Cassidy. She may have been 2nd. I can't remember. Do you remember off the top of your head?
I'm like picturing the list in my mind, and I really cannot remember.
And I'm talking about the pro singles rankings.
Yeah, the pro singles list. I know. I remember. I'm picturing it because I went through it to pull some stats before, and I know Yeti was right there. I can't remember if she's before or after Sarah.
Yeti is really turned. I still think, if you're not someone in the know, I mean, everyone knows Cheyenne, right? And now it becomes, who's the 2nd best female player in the world? Who's going to challenge Cheyenne Renner? And I would think if you asked most people, I don't know if Yeti's the first person on that list, right? I mean,
I don't think it was. I think but it's becoming.
It's exactly. And I want to see her continue to just, and she's always had good talent. She would just have a couple of loose rounds, and you're wondering where they came from, especially when things would get tight.
She had a floor, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that floor could be, pretty low. Like she had an A game, and she actually had a D game, where, a lot of pros have an A, a B, and maybe a C+ game. I mean, she kind of had a D game that she could throw in there. I think she's kind of eliminated that, and she's taken some giant strides forward. And I'm just curious to see, now we're in our first national, I want to see if she continues that growth in the pro division.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, wouldn't it be so crazy if the first female to win a national wasn't Cheyenne? Like, that would just be so crazy for all of us, I think. So how cool would that be for someone like Yeti to do?
So we got, Cheyenne making it all the way to the World Championship finals. I mean, for a female to break that, they're going to have to win a national or a World Championship. At this point, do you see one outside of Cheyenne that you would say could possibly do it? I don't know if we're there yet, but I think Yeti is kind of climbing up that ladder of female players, and I think she's cemented herself in the top 5. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think she's continuing to make that climb, and just got to keep that confidence up. And the problem with Yeti is Yeti's close. I'm not going to say her age, but she's older. And I think you saw that sometimes older people can, like, when you start, the emotional heaviness of making mistakes to a person gets worse as you get older. I don't know why. It just
family. Does. She's giving up a lot.
You realize the gravity of your mistakes where an 18-year-old may not. Right? So
yeah, well, I think that those mistakes aren't as detrimental because, like I said, you're putting your family through, this is my career. There's a lot of sacrifices we have to make. So if you're not hitting, top of the list, you're like, why am I even doing all of this? This isn't really even worth the sacrifice.
Right. And I want to see Yeti continue to play as well as she's been playing the last 6 months. I'm really happy for her and the growth of her as a professional.
Agreed. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we'll go through my singles right after this. All right, Bernie, it is time to go through my singles, and you have not yet seen this.
I have not. I'm just like everybody else, just dying of anticipation here to see your top five.
As you should be. Oh, man. All right. I have to tell you this first one. Isidro Herrera, you don't hear from him. He's super quiet, and then he'll just pop up, just like deep in brackets. Like, he is just a total mystery to me, this guy. I never know what to expect with him. And you feel like he's not really into the cornhole world, but then he shows up and plays well, so he has to be. But I just find him fascinating, to be honest.
I agreed. I think you're talking about a player that hasn't been able to, for whatever reason, whether it's family or whatever reason, he hasn't been able to dedicate himself to the game the way that the elite pros have. And, there was one time that you could make the argument that Isidro Herrera was in that elite status. Because look, when you watch him play cornhole and all of a sudden he's on and you're watching his A game, it's like watching a metronome, the way his arm works. The timing is gorgeous to watch. It's so smooth. It's so fluid. But yet, I think because he's not able to focus 100% on the game the way that some of the others are, you're just going to get that little bit level off.
Yeah.
Your consistency level isn't quite as high as the elite pros. And so when he runs up against some of those guys and girls, you might get a bad game. But I love the fact that you put him on here because the machine, as I called him years ago, I mean, he was just fun to watch. It's fun to watch someone where it looks so simple and looks so easy. When like even Ryan Windsor, as great as Ryan Windsor is, his throw looks
labor intensive.
Yeah, not painful, but there's work going on there, right? With Isidro, it looks like that arm could do that literally for 10 hours straight, and he wouldn't even feel it.
Yeah, it's so
you know what I mean? And it's just I love to watch that, and that's a great one to have on your list. I like that.
I just find it fascinating to watch his name in brackets. I'm like, there he goes. Look at him go.
Oh, dude, when he's on, when he's on, he's still got that talent. I think his consistency level, like, can he do that for 7 straight matches? That's the difference, right?
It's true. And, but he had a good weekend. So, I'm just curious to see if he can make a showing here. I'm just fascinated by it. My next one, Timmy Jonas. I feel like this is a better season for him. I think he's putting in the work. I think the confidence is there. And I think that he could have a really good showing coming out in the Nationals this season. And I just want to see if all that work he's putting in at home is going to translate on a big stage.
Yeah, I mean, Timmy's one of our, TikTok stars, right?
Yeah.
He's got quite the online presence, which is great. I mean, I think he's making a name for himself beyond cornhole, which is, I kind of want sometimes maybe some of the top 10 players to be as active as Timmy and kind of making a name for themselves the way he does, because who knows where they could go with that. But one of our original college guys, so he's always going to be, have a soft spot for me, with me. And I'm with you. I love the fact that he's still around, being that he's one of our original college guys. So,
exactly.
That speaks volumes to his dedication and talent.
Yeah, and doing fairly well, and this season really doing the best I've seen. And so we'll see how that pans out. My next one, Vincent Frisch. I wanted to put a PDC player in there. It's really hard to come out of the PDC, but we saw the Gore brothers make a pretty good run last season coming out of the PDC field. And I think if anybody could do it, it's Vincent Frisch. He is incredibly talented. He's got the confidence, so the skill is there. The confidence is there. He's young. I think that usually translates into stamina. Now, I mean, a national's different. So it's really hard to say if some of these rookies have the stamina that it would take to get through a whole weekend like these pros that have done it before are used to. But I feel like, he plays baseball. This is someone that could come out and really make some noise and give some of those pros some hell as they go through the brackets.
Yeah, it's just so tough on the PDC guys, right? It's so hard because to come out of that, you're playing a 1 seed. And that's just so difficult. I mean, you've done so well, you're playing well, and then sometimes you just run into a better player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they just, unfortunately for the PDC guys, sometimes it's right away, right? It's just first game, it's just tough. But
I do think the advantage of the PDC is that if anything, so if I'm a PDC player this season, the way that I'm looking at the National Series is not, necessarily I have to win. Like, of course, you always want to win, but to me, I would just be looking for the experience because now you come into the pro field next season as a pro, you already have a season behind you. Whereas if somebody was not in the PDC, this is their very first national ever. I feel like you have a leg up just having the experience of these nationals under your belt.
Sure. I agree. And, let's say you PDC player and you run up against a 1 seed, which will be different in this particular national because it's going to be rounders. So it might be a little bit easier to make a run in this particular national. But going forward, you come out, you play a 1 seed. Let's say, you play them well, but, they're a 1 seed. They're there. They're atop of the world for a reason. You can still make noise in the elimination bracket.
Absolutely.
Fight
your way through.
Keep your head up. Don't let that one loss get down on you. I think the Gore brothers did that very well last year.
They did. Yep.
And, they wanted to say, look, we may not win this thing, blah, 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 but people are going to know who we are.
And we're going to take some people out. Like you're going to be pretty upset you ran into us in the elimination side because
you're not going to want to play me again. Put it that way.
Exactly.
And I think that's how Vincent should approach this. Like, can I win a bracket? I mean, you never know, but probably not. But how many people can I take with me on my way? And that's kind of, and what kind of experience, am I going to look at this as a bummer? Even if you do, let's say you do go in and you're 0-2. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Do you look at that as a giant collapse and you're really down on yourself? Or do you say, you know what, a bag here, a bag there, I made a couple of mistakes, but I now know I can't make that mistake at that particular time.
Yeah. And also you made it through, to get that far. So, I mean, that says a lot.
100%.
And also I would just be like, check the box that now I have a national under my belt. And I think that that's going to really help you out with the next one and the next one and the ones going forward. And when you come back as a pro, so all a win there. The next one, Mark Richards, obviously interested in seeing Mark Richards because he's elite and he's the top of everyone's list. But most importantly to me is I'm so kind of what I alluded to earlier. I'm so fascinated by his mental toughness, his ability to, it doesn't matter that normally there's a slump after your first really good year. It doesn't matter that nobody's been able to keep it up. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like that's going to get in the way of Mark Richards. And I would love to see that actually reflected in the standings. I was asking Trey have we ever had someone that came, had a super elite season and then came back and stayed somewhere in the top 10? And it doesn't seem like that's happening. Even Jamie Graham, after his really good season, came back and he was somewhere in the like 20s or something the next season. I just don't see that happening with Mark Richards.
Yeah, you can scream platitudes till the cows come home about Mark Richards and his play and his mental toughness. I like his competitiveness. I think that's what this is all about. I mean, I think he likes to compete. I think he loves to get out there and play and compete. And I think because of that, I don't think some of that other stuff really gets in. If I was on that level, I would be worried about this. I'd be worried about that. I would be thinking about stuff that really had nothing to do with the game itself. Whereas Mark is a competitor. Mark just wants to play.
Yeah.
Right. And he wants to challenge himself against the best because he thinks he is the best.
Yeah.
And I love that. I mean, I love the competitive fire of Mark Richards. I love it.
Speaking of competitive fire, my last one, Alex Rawls. Alex Rawls kind of, in the shadow of Mark Richards last season, but shouldn't be, an elite player, somebody that I would be confident to pick to win any bracket anytime. Has all the shots, is super consistent, and has that fire and that drive. So I want to see if he's going to take out a bracket win, and kind of take that spot, I guess you could say, from Mark Richards going into this season.
I love the Alex Rawls pick for this reason. I don't think anyone ever experienced the type of broadcast year that Alex Rawls did. You know how well you have to play to make as many broadcasts as Alex Rawls did last year? But we never really saw the A game once he got on television. You know what I mean? And that's got to be so frustrating, because you know how well you played, you know the level that you were, where your game was to get to the broadcast level, right? I mean, you have to be playing at such an elite level, and then to kind of have your B+ game or your B game out there a number of times has to be so frustrating. So I would imagine Alex knows that he's good enough to make a broadcast. He's not one of those players that's like, am I there? Is my game ready? He knows, right? He knows 100% his game is good enough to be on a broadcast. His next level, and really that's the last step of Mount Everest, right? It's one more step, is just giving my A game on a broadcast. He's gonna walk away with a win or two. And that's all you can hope for.
Yeah, that really was the difference between his season and Mark Richards' season, is Mark Richards played elite under the lights.
Yes. I mean, maybe we can get Trey or someone to go back and look it up, but I don't know if outside of Mark was anyone else on TV more than Alex Rawls last year.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer, but I think you're onto something there for sure. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break and come back with Bernie's doubles to watch at the first national. Welcome back to ACL Live. We went through our singles to watch for the kickoff battle in Corpus Christi, and now it's time to go through the doubles. So we're going to start with you, Bernie. Bring up your doubles to watch. And
There
go
we
ahead and
go.
dive in.
There we go. I made a mistake. I normally don't do this. I normally don't have a player in twice. I do my best not to, but because Gavin has been so remarkable in the Open Series, especially in doubles, I had to have Fisher Hamilton in there again with Gavin Connor.
Yeah.
I want to see if Gavin, along with Fisher, can continue that level of play. I mean, if Gavin has been extraordinary in the Open Series, and I just want to see that level continue, because if we do get that level, possible broadcast? I mean, is it possible?
I mean, like I go back to, like I said, national number one and our doubles broadcast being two teams that, we didn't pick to be there. And so to me, anything is possible in what we see out there.
Yeah. I really would like to see it, because it's so cool to have someone burst on the scene like that. So Gavin Cano, Fisher Hamilton, make me look good. Number
first
two,
national too. That would be a big
first
deal.
national, no pressure. Don't even think about it. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Number two, Kyle Malone and Jimmy Humans. Has anyone had a better start to this year than Kyle Malone? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, this is really going to come down. I mean, I don't think it's a secret. It's really going to come down to Jimmy Humans.
Exactly what I was getting ready to ask you. Does Jimmy Humans feel that kind of pressure? Because he has to know. I mean, I'm sure he's in the chat right now. I mean, he has to know that everyone's aware of where Kyle's level is right now. And if you're Jimmy, I mean, to be as good a player as Jimmy Humans is, I mean, is your goal to get the bags back to Kyle?
I think so. I think it's what Philip Lopez would say too. When you have someone like that on the other side of the boards, I think you think my goal is to always minimize damage, try to get a point here or there, and just get the bags back to my partner who is going to shine. And if I can do that and just be the supportive role, it obviously it works. We saw it work with Mark Richards and Philip Lopez. Philip Lopez, not to take away from his talent, it was just I remember hearing conversations, and that's kind of his approach.
Yeah, I mean, like I think there's times when Jimmy may want to be aggressive, and then may have to think like, do I want to turn a 2-point loss into a 5-point loss, or at best a wash? Or do I just give up the 2 max, get lucky, it's a wash, and then give the bags back? Well, right. if I continue, like if I'm aggressive, all of a sudden I'm giving up crooked numbers, and that changes the complex of the game. The complexion of the game, excuse me. I don't know. But yeah. I think it has to enter into your head. Even when you're one of the great players in the world, you kind of have to think, all right, I've got the hottest player on the planet. My job, minimize damage. If I can steal a point here and there, great. Get the bags back to Kyle, let him do work, right? So yeah. I'm interested to see how that dynamic works between those two. Number 3, James Baldwin, Jordan Cambo, really former world champions.
Very curious about this.
Very. And we saw what happened with the partner switch. I like it, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. They obviously have the experience, the chemistry. It's just weird that they didn't come into the season together. That's what makes this a little bit odd. Obviously, them as a team makes total sense.
Yeah, I think there was pressure on James last year, to be honest with you. I don't – Cheyenne going into that season had kind of cemented herself as a top 15, top 20 player. I don't know if you can say that now exactly, but she had at that point, and everyone was looking for her to take that next step. And I don't know if that just, psychologically kind of got into James's head a little bit. And I think he'll feel much more relaxed playing with Jordan. I mean, these are former world champions. Former world champions. You get them feeling good about themselves, they can win a tournament. And you can't say that about a lot of teams that would be ranked. I don't know. I can't really look at the rankings, but you can't say that about a lot of teams when you get past 7 or 8 in the ranking. Seriously. But if you get an A game from both those guys, and all of a sudden they start feeling like it's 2020 again, 2021 again, right? All of a sudden, who knows? So I'm very interested to see how that twosome works.
Agreed.
Number 4, look, I'm always putting them on my list. Okay? I'm always doing it because I think if you get a focused Adam Hisner and Cody Henderson, you get a team just like we saw at the World Championships last year that's going to be on a broadcast. Yeah. I don't know if we can always get them that focused, that they have other interests, work, yada, yada, yada. I get it. It's still there. The talent is still there. I just want to see it. I think the game's better when they're very good. That's all I'm going to say about it.
But yeah, well, obviously we've got veterans. There's not a lot of teams that have been a team as long as them. And then we also have the entertainment factor. They talk, they chirp, there's a lot going on there, and their personalities when they're mic'd, they talk a lot and it's interesting to listen to. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they're fun to watch, but they're also obviously elite talent as well. So fun to watch in all aspects.
Yeah, the beauty of them when you get them in a match, especially when they get deep in a bracket and things get for real, right? Because of who they are, they have a faction of people that are going to pull for them. That Ohio crew is always on their side, right? And they rub some people the wrong way. So you have this group of people that are going to be pulling against them, or shall we say for the other team. It gets loud when they play deep in tournaments. And that's so much more fun. You can feel the energy level rise around the court, and then you get to abroad. It just changes what's happening on the court. They're always going to be on my list. I'm just telling you. I'm letting you know ahead of time. Unless they win one, they're always going to be on my list. And if they do win one, then I want to put them on my list to see if they can keep up the good work. I'm always curious to see how they do in a doubles tournament.
That's fair. Yeah, I like that point.
That leads me to number 5, Tyler Poitras, Kaylee Hunter. I think a lot of eyes have been on them, especially to start this. When teams were being put together, when doubles partners were kind of being announced, this one raised a lot of eyes. Tyler coming back into the game after a brief sabbatical. Kaylee kind of a player on the rise, shall we say, especially on the women's side. But I think overall, just a play. I mean, I think the talent level with Kaylee Hunter is immense. I think it's, if you lined up all the ladies and you said, all right, who's got the most talent here? She's at the very top of that conversation. I mean, I think she would even admit that if there is a weakness to her game, she can psychologically get down on herself.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
I'm interested to see, can Tyler get back to the level where he once was, a guy that's made broadcasts, a guy that's been at the top level, and can Kaylee kind of get over her demons inside a little bit and just kind of play? Because when she kind of there's moments when she gets so mad at herself, she just quits worrying about it and just lets go, and she's amazing, right? And then there's times that you can see she's listening to other people, she's inside her own head, and all of a sudden she kind of tightens up. I would just love to see her just let go, just let it all go and just play. That's what I want to see.
And I'm wondering too if Tyler can help with that. He was very open about his journey and some of the mental health stuff that he had to go through. And I wonder if he can be an assistance there and how vocal he is with her about some of those challenges and noticing when she's in her head and being able to be the person that can ground her. I don't really know much about their chemistry as a team.
Well, they're both. I mean, they're very familiar with each other. Being from that region, so they're familiar folks. So I think that helps
people that are familiar, like I know people locally, for example, that are good friends, play together, but their game is I'll play my game, you play your game, even though they're good friends. And I just don't feel like that's going to give the best performance necessarily. It is a doubles game, and I think you have to learn how to interact with your partner in a supportive way. And I think that he could really help her through some of those challenges if they can figure out how to communicate that during game and it's received well.
100%.
Yeah. All right, well, you take another commercial break, and then we'll come back with my doubles before we wrap up the show. Stay tuned right after this. it is our last segment here. We're going to go through my doubles to watch at the first national. Bernie, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's do it. I put some fun ones on here.
There we go.
So the first one, you did one half of the partner swap. I did the other. So Cheyenne Bubenheim and Frank Maudlin. I love this team. I think this team makes sense. I think they're going to do really well. I think it's a better fit for everybody. And I want to see that play out.
I love that you put this in. I mean, everyone knows, I've always been on the Cheyenne Bubenheim bandwagon. I love putting Frank Maudlin there. Because there are times, look, that Cheyenne, she has a fairly simplistic game in her style. But if she's off just a little bit, I mean, is there a better person than Frank Maudlin on the other end? Like, hey, it's all right.
That's who I want on the other end. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. 100%. And Cheyenne knows that you got Frank down there, and Frank, what's his nickname?
Find a way, Frank.
He's going to find a way. Even if he doesn't have his A game, he's going to find a way to hang in there for you. So it's a very interesting team to watch. I like that you have them on your list.
You know what I love too is I feel like you never have to worry about Frank losing his temper or getting in his head, like over responding. Like I feel like you just have none of that. And like if I'm picking a doubles partner, I want someone that I don't have to worry about losing themselves.
Yeah, you would never want me as a doubles partner. Even if I was good at this game, you would never want me as a doubles partner.
Probably not.
You would never know when the explosion was coming.
Yeah, and I just don't I'm so even keeled when it comes to playing that I would want someone that I just know I can trust, can keep it together. And I feel like that is Frank Maudlin. Even Cheyenne, if she makes a miss, I mean, she'll have a small response, but you don't really worry about her spiraling down. And so I like this team, and I'm excited to watch them. My next one, of course, I can't talk about anybody without talking about Eric Davis and Brett Guy. Eric Davis is my favorite player to watch.
Yep.
I find him so entertaining, and I think Brett Guy and him together, they balance each other out so well. Brett Guy shows up in doubles. He really does, and it's just obviously a team that we've had for a while, so they have that experience and that chemistry, and they've been on the big stage many times together. But quiet, right? Like, have they even played an open together? I'm trying to think.
Can you think of a partnership that won? Now, look, some pros still have an issue with the shootout because of the round limits, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But these two guys won a ton of money in the shootout champions last year. Has anyone ever done something like that, come into the next season and have the elite level talent that they have and are being wildly overlooked?
That's what I'm starting to say. Like, I don't feel like they've played yet this season. I'm trying to remember if I've seen them in an open. I mean, I've seen them individually. Yeah, I think I've seen them individually. I don't know. Well, their names haven't gotten, too much exposure this season. But as a team, very reliable, make deep runs. Obviously, the shootout, they do really, really well. But even in the Nationals, we've seen them make deep runs. And I just love watching them personally. So
sure. Look, Eric Davis is on my list, too. One of my favorite players to watch.
Favorite.
He oddly enough, he's still pretty young. And, even Eric has kind of admitted this. Eric makes a few more bags and then gets a little pickier when he decides to kind of show off that immense talent. Watch out. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, as good as he is, as exciting as he is, there are still levels to his game that it can go up, which is insane to me.
Exactly. He hasn't even peaked.
Right.
That's the craziest part. All right, now the next two are going to be the other partner swaps. So we've got Nate Voyer and Josh Holland. The Hollands breaking up is still mind-blowing to me. I can't. I was asking Trey and Anthony, had they not broken up, were they on your top 10 list? And both, yes, they were on my top 10 list.
Yeah.
And now they change partners, and now neither one of those teams is on people's top 10 list. Is like mind-blowing to me.
You got to love it if you're Nate Voyer, and Nate, being who he is, seems to be taking all this the best. I don't see anything from Nate Voyer where he's like, man, Josh Holland, I mean, this guy's used to winning tournaments. He's used to being on broadcast. I've got my game up. I don't really see that from Nate. I see it from Nate like, hell yeah, I got a chance to make some broadcast. You know what I mean? And it's awesome. But it's a curious partnership. But Nate Voyer, we talked about it on my list with Jimmy Humans. I mean, Nate has to think to himself, like, do what I got to do to get the bags back in Josh's hand.
Yeah.
Right. And there are times then Josh, he doesn't show a lot of emotion, but you can tell when he's not playing well.
Right.
You know, you can still read it on his face, even though he's not giving you a whole bunch. And I think Nate being, you know, he's a school teacher, the kind of guy that he is, I think actually works really well. Because, you know, Derek and Josh being father and son, I think something there, I think it's harder for Derek to get Josh out of those moments,
Sure.
maybe than other people. And Nate might be the perfect person for that. We'll see. But it's just such a big moment for Nate Voyer. And I'm not knocking Nate Voyer as a player. He's been a pro, you know, for a few years now, right? I mean, this is a super chance to make, you know,
a splash.
It's a splash to where his kids that he teaches can actually watch him on television. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is, you know, going into last season, I believe it was last season, where we were talking about, can Derek keep up with Josh? Is Derek going to be a good enough doubles partner for Josh? And I feel like it's flipped. I feel like Derek, you know, it became down to, is Josh going to keep up with Derek? I feel like Derek Holland was really.
I mean, I think he was more consistent, but I mean, Josh Holland had a perfect game on television.
He definitely did.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
at the same time, you know, we saw a lot of struggle with the bags. You know, Josh is
Yeah.
very vocal about that. Now going back to the bags he's comfortable with. Derek seemed to adjust a little bit better. And I think that's going to play out. I'm curious to see how it plays out, I should say. Now that Josh has the bags that he wants in his hands, you know, what does that look like in terms of the remainder of the season? And then on the flip side with Derek, you know, I don't know much about Justin Rule's game. I don't really know what to expect there.
I mean, there's a lot of talent there. Justin Rule kind of strike. I mean, I'm trying to think of who he plays like, but it's you know the expression, like he's a poor man's this or that. Like he plays like other, you know, a couple of other players, but just not to that level, right? But still, look, the beauty of this is we're talking about all professionals here. These are all elite talent. So we're not knocking anyone when I say things like that. But you know, is Justin Rule as good as Josh Holland? No, I don't think so. So it's another curious departure. I don't know. Do you know? Maybe you know, because of, you know, having Anthony and Trey on your show, you probably get a little bit more inside scoop than I do. Like who instigated that change?
The switch?
Yeah.
Well, the bag company.
So but I mean, so Josh and Derek just didn't want to play together anymore. But the bag company came in and said, "All right, we'll pay you to come play." That's how it was.
I think the bag company told Josh, you know, this isn't going to work out, and I think that I would assume, and this is not fact checked, that Derek was like, well, this is a good contract. I don't really want to step away from it, kind of thing. Okay. And so I'll just have another partner is, you know, and I think when you're really, really good, your mindset is give me a pro at the other side of the boards and I'll handle it. You know, I'll get this done.
Right. Interesting. It's just, I don't know. I mean, there are times, and I've said this probably 45 times, and Trey and I, when we did this show, like last year, we talked about it. There are times when you watch Josh Holland play, when he's feeling it, when you got his A game, and you're like, man, how does that guy lose?
Yeah. Oh, I remember thinking that. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, there's times when you watch him, it's just like, how do you beat that? Seriously, like, how do you beat that? He's got an answer for every answer you have. You know, and it's unreal. And just, you know, if he gets to the point where he's feeling completely confident in the bags, it's in his hand, I think there's a lot of pressure on Nate because Josh is going to be doing what Josh Holland does. You better not be giving up crooked numbers on your side. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You just it's the same thing, like you said with Jimmy. You got to minimize damage, maybe get a point here or two and get the bags back. And I think that if you go in with that mindset, I think Nate will be okay. But if you're trying to and I don't think he would do this, but if you're like, I need to shine or I need to overshadow, that's definitely not going to work. But if you're just I know my role and I'm going to really be masterful of my role, I think it can go pretty well. Yeah. And then my last team is going to be the Gore brothers. We mentioned earlier about how they had a really good season in the PDC last season and were always making it into the pro bracket. Now they're actually in the pro bracket. They have all the shots. I mean, Jackson's game especially, I see a lot of maturity in it. I think he's even talked about, like, I have to even step back a little bit from some of the fancier things and kind of slide more in. I think that the way they look at the game is pretty analytical, and they have the talent, obviously. So we know that they broke some hearts last season coming into the bracket. They were people you didn't want to run into or play, and now here they are starting there, not having to start off, against the 1 seed and playing together as a team. And I think that they can make some noise.
I love that you put them in. I was so close to putting them on my list. Like you said about Jackson. I mean, Jeff McCarrigan and I on Borderline. Jeff's talked about Jackson, that he's spoken with him, and Jackson does film study. He studies. He's gone back and watched every game that he's played where someone has videotaped it, or whether it's been on, one of our streaming courts. He's gone back and really analyzed his delivery, his release points. I mean, that's saying something for an adult. Now you're talking about a teenager, barely a teenager, barely a teenager that's that kind of dedication to his game. He does have a very mature game. He's even admitted, I've got to put more bags in the hole, because these two guys have all the shots. I mean, they can roll with you. They can do whatever you want with a bag, but then at the end of the day, you have to outscore your opponent, and one of the easiest ways to do that is putting more bags in the hole than they do.
Yeah, right? And that's a mindset, right? You have some players that, like, I just have to get more bag. I have to get all my bags in the hole. That's how I win. And other players that I need to make my opponent make mistakes. I mean, we have different mindsets going into the game, and it sounds like Jackson is really thinking about what that blend might look like in a way that he didn't necessarily before. So I'd love to see that play out.
Yeah, but I like the attitude of, look, I love the dirtier style game. It's more entertaining I think people that like cornhole and people that watch cornhole, I think it's more entertaining. We've had this argument a myriad of times.
That's Jeff's favorite argument.
But I mean, there's validity to that argument, because I've talked to some of my friends that don't know anything about the game really, and they're like, what's that? And, they don't get when people are missing shots, because it doesn't make any sense watching it on television. Like, well, hell, I can do that,
Right.
But for some of the dirtier players, make some more shots, put the bag in the hole a few more times, and then attack with your roll bags, attack with the dirtier style when you can. But be able to slot, be able to go, 12 in a row if you have to.
Yeah.
And like that's the one worry I have with some of the dirtier players, is they can't make 12 in a row. And they'll say, well, I don't need to. That's not my game. It's like, yeah, but at this level, you probably should be able to.
It's a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's kind of one of the things we'll watch out for, right? When we look at who's making these deep runs is, are we seeing trends in what style of players are making it to the broadcast, winning broadcast? It does seem like you have to be one of those players that can do it all. I
think you have to be a player nowadays that can do whatever they need to do. And like, that's where the Mac guys have to sit back and say, well, the hell with that. I'm making every bag, and if you put a block up, I'm airmail, right?
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of this other stuff. I still love seeing that clash of styles when you get a Mac guy or a Damon Dennis out there playing against one of the kids that's going to roll all over it's so fun to watch when you get that contrast in styles. But I think going forward in the evolution of this game, you're going to have to be a player that can do it all to be truly successful.
But we will see. So like I said, the first nationals next weekend in Corpus Christi, Texas. Definitely look out for some of the players we talked about.
Or the following weekend, right?
Is it next weekend?
Well, the weekend after this coming weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. That's right.
Yeah. I got you.
7th, 8th, 9th. How about that? First weekend in April, however you want to say it. But that's all the time we got for today. We'll see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. It's been awesome hanging out with you, Bernie. Talk to you later.